Let's go. We're ready? Okay, welcome, gentlemen, to our weekly short Parashat Beshalach. We're resuming from Perek Tetvav, immediately following the prophetic songs of Am Yisrael, men and women. And here, we're about to leave Yam Suf. As you read the Psukim 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26. And it seems that we have a problem. We have a problem in a place called Marah. And are members of Israel complaining? Yes or no? Yes or no? They're complaining. I think it was some of you, including Itai, that remembers that appears in our Siddur after Shacharit, Sheish Zechirot, 6 rememberings. And some of the rememberings are the difficulties that we had coming out of Mitzrayim. For instance, Zechor al Tishkach, remember, don't forget, the time that you got God angered in the Midbar, in the desert. Okay? That's one of the 6. Let me ask you something. This time here, in the place called Marah, is that mentioned as one of the times that we got God angered? Yes or no? Do you see Hashem's anger over here? Even though we're complaining about water, yes or no? No. When you contemplate and understand these psukim here, you don't even find a hint to Hashem's anger. Usually we read the rest of our travelings and journeys in the Midbar, in the desert, especially in the book of Bamidbar. We see that we get Hashem's anger kindled. Correct? However, here, not only here do we not see it, but in the Mishnah Torah, in the book of Dvarim, when Moshe Rabbeinu reviews the major episodes that we went through in the Midbar, we don't see this rebellion, this complaint mentioned whatsoever. I'd like to contact David HaMelech. Where can I get him? I don't know. Shalom. In your Mizmorei Tehillim, when you also go through the times that we got Hashem angered in the Midbar, did you mention or survey the time that we're in Marah? You know what David told me? No, he didn't. Okay? So why is this case in this complaint different than other places where we see Am Yisrael complaining, maybe denying Hashem or His greatness, and then Hashem's angered is kindled? So, let's remember the following. This is a great idea that I learned with my dear father-in-law, Rabbi Horowitz Shlita. And we all know that the nation of Israel was designed and designated to reach great heights throughout their history. We're not a small nation in quality. We're a great holy nation with great capabilities. And therefore, Hashem created us in order to tell about His greatness. Because through the greatness of Am Yisrael, will the world realize the greatness of God. Like Isaiah the prophet says, quote, Amzu, a nation that, Yatzarti li, I created them for me, Tehilati, my praise, Yisaperu, they will tell. Okay? In that prophecy, it says later on in Yeshayahu 43, Ve'atem Edai. God says, Isaiah says the name of God, you are my witnesses. That I'm God in the world. In other words, when you do what you're supposed to do, when you live and manage your life according to the values, the ideals, the Torah and the mitzvot, then you're testifying about this godly world, that Hashem is behind you. So too the nations of the world, but on a different level, can do goodness through the 7 Noachite laws. And they can even merit the world to come on a private level. However, on a national level, there's only one nation on the planet of Earth that was designated for this greatness. We all learned in the last Chumash in Bereshit, it all started with the life of the Avot, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Each of them, by the way, had reached material heights of wealth. But that wasn't really the interest of Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu didn't really care so much about his material wealth, even though he had great wealth. He was even willing to be thrown into the furnace of fire when, in order to publicize the name of God, as he was thrown there by the king, Nimrod. So too Yitzchak, the son of Avram Avinu, tremendous wealth, tremendous honor, more than any other man maybe in his generation, but he was willing to give up that wealth. When God commanded Avram to take his son Yitzchak to the Akedah, did Yitzchak say a word? No complaint whatsoever. So too the grandson, Yaakov Avinu. He lived in difficult conditions 20 plus years in the Galut with Lavan, Harami, the deceiver, in the most darkest places of morals and values. Yet, he kept the spiritual life, the formula of values and ideals, the spiritual values of his father and grandfather. Im Lavan Garti, I lived with Lavan, and I still kept Tariag mitzvot. Now, we're skipping to this generation. We call them, they're nicknamed Gu'ulei Mitzrayim, the Redeemers, meaning from Egypt. We know that the lives that we lived, in Mitzrayim, were very far away from the lives of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. We've talked about it many times. We were so assimilated. We went through such difficult servitude that had a difficult effect on us both physically and spiritually for close to 80, 90, or 100 years in Mitzrayim. After such a long period of assimilation, however, what's left in the heart, what's left in the nucleus of the soul, we have a tradition that handed down to us. We're a nation with great devotion. We have the ability to have self-sacrifice, like we're learning today. What a generation in the war against the worst enemies that we've had. We have this level of devotion, of clinging on to God. It started with God's promise to Avram Avinu. It was a brit, a covenant. It's inside the hearts and souls of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and all their seed afterwards. And therefore, now as a nation, coming out of Mitzrayim, we have divine promises that God will never leave us. He will always be with us. And therefore, God's words will be erect and standing for us. Now, we're about to travel and leave the place called Yam Suf. We're about to leave the place called Yam Suf. Usually, when the Torah talks about traveling, it says Vayisu, and they traveled. But before they travel, we all just studied in our last shiur the great heights, elevation, that the nation saw the might of God, and they reached a certain level of great fear of Hashem. Correct? What's happened ever since? What are we doing? Are we ready to travel? If so, why does it say in Pasuk Kaf Bet, Vayasa Moshe et Yisrael miyam suf? Vayasa. The usual word the Torah uses is Vayisu, and they traveled. In Pasuk, again, the new subject, Pasuk 22, we're after the song. Everyone has the place, correct? Why is it changing here? Before we get to the answer, I want to share with you some ideas that Chazal teach us in the Midrash, which is also a reflection of what happened before the splitting of the sea. What did we learn before the splitting of the sea? Israel was divided into separate camps of thought. We were divided, like we saw before. There were people, let's talk about Machane Mispar Echad, camp number 1. There were the great individuals of Am Yisrael that were so taken by this event They saw the Shekhinah, the divine presence. Why should we leave? This is such a great place. God's providence and power and great revelation to us. Let's stay here. There's nothing better than Yam Suf. This is a great place. Camp number 1. Camp number 2, the simple laymen of the Jewish people. What are they gathering on the bed of the sea? What are they collecting? A stamp collection? A coin collection? They were collecting the gold and the silver. Paro decorated his soldiers, his horses, his chariots with gold and silver, maybe from the treasury of the Egyptian capital. And all of that right now is booty. What do soldiers often do at the end of the war? They take the wealth, the riches. There were Jews that did not want to leave Yam Suf because they're taking all this bounty, all this booty. They wanted to accumulate even more. That's 2 groups. Group number 3, I want to get back at the Egyptians. I want to go back to Mitzrayim, the Midrash says. There was a group that wants to go back to Mitzrayim in order to hand out and issue vengeance to the Egyptians that did terrible things to us. One last group that was there said, you know what? We like the idolatry that the Egyptians had, but now that we saw the visions, the great things of God at the sea, okay, maybe we can manage by ourselves. We can go back to Mitzrayim and live there, and maybe we'll be able to serve God there. All these different groups. One group even said, look, did God take us out of Mitzrayim only before, on behalf of 5 things? To give us the booty of Egypt, to let us see the clouds of glory, to split the sea, to exact punishment to the Egyptians, and now we sang the song of praise. Now that God gave us all these things, let's go back to Mitzrayim. We have everything. Would you like to be Moshe Rabbeinu right now? It seems like almost an impossible job. Moshe is aware, apparently, of these claims, of these groups. But he's also aware that there's a divine plan that's up ahead. We have to travel and get to Sinai. We have to receive the Torah and then travel to Eretz Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu knows the realization of the vision of God, the ideals are still in front of us. Therefore, what will he do? What will he do when he meets up with opposition, resistance? So, in one word, we can see what Moshe is doing. It doesn't say Vayis'u Moshe, that Bnei Yisrael and Moshe are traveling. It says Vayasa in the Hebrew tense, Hif'il. Moshe Rabbeinu, and Rashi brings it, is persuading, going up against their will. They didn't want to leave. Who is convincing them? Who is persuading them? Look and see in your Chumash, the opening word, Vayasa Moshe. Moshe right now is persuading them. He is convincing them. Maybe as a stick as well. Why? Why is this happening, gentlemen? Why aren't the miracles of Yam Suf enough to persuade and give the Jewish people enough depth? Here is a very important principle. It deserves a lot of time for explanation, but I don't really have the time. But I want to say the following. Any faith in God that's based purely on miracles and not research and not in-depth study, it just like it may come fast, it may leave also fast. Emunah, though, that's based upon education, depth, study, questions and answers, a continuous time, fundamentals being taught, based also on experiences of life, but through contemplating the hashgacha, the divine supervision of God, through God's management in nature, that type of faith remains. That type of faith is solid, strong. But what the Jewish people went through, Schnell, 1, 2, 3. They witnessed the Exodus. They witnessed the power of God during the night of the seventh day. They've yet to begin enrollment in the course of education for Emunah. They haven't yet enrolled. This is only the beginning. And therefore, who understands what spiritual level the Jewish people are really on? Who knows where they are? Hashem does. We asked the question a few minutes ago. When they're complaining here for water, why isn't Hashem mad at them? When you have a child, and the child makes a mistake, do you just start screaming at your child? He's only a child. A yingala. He's a young boy. What do you want from him? He's learning. He's getting education. He has ups and downs, corrections and mistakes. It's natural. He's not an angel. Okay? This situation is Am Yisrael right now. When we travel from Masa and we get to the Shur Desert, and we travel how many days? Vayilchu shloshet yamim, we travel 3 days in the Midbar. And what does it say? Velo matzu mayim. Let me ask you something. We didn't find water after 3 days. Did we drink water? Does it say we didn't drink water? Does it say we complained, yes or no? Yes or no? No, right now in Pasuk 22. No, during these 3 days, we didn't complain. Let me ask you something. Did we go to a supermarket and buy water after Yam Suf? Do you know what could have happened? I sent Shmuel to check the salination level of Yam Suf. And he came back and he said, you're not going to believe this, Rabbi Menachem. A miracle happened. I took water out of Yam Suf and it wasn't so salty. I called someone else. We brought some Anshe Mabada. We brought some people that know how to work at the laboratory. And they also checked the water. And they said, fine. What did Israel start doing? Apparently, even though it doesn't say, we filled up our water bottles from Yam Suf. How many days did it last? It lasted 3 days. And now what are we doing? We're searching for water. Velo matzu mayim. Yet we didn't complain. Maybe that's a miracle, or maybe we just finished drinking water for 3 days. Yes or no? Now we camp at a place called Pasuk Kav Gimel. I'm reading. Vayavo Marata, right? The tough and the hay. To the place, El Makom. Marah ends with the letter Hey, feminine ending, yes? So, the Hey comes off. To Marah, Marata. Yerushalayma. Okay? Marah ends with the Hey. Give me a city or a town in Israel that ends with the Hey. Come on. Huh? Haifa. Haifata. Okay? We arrive at Marata. V'lo yachlu l'shtot mayim mimarah. Why couldn't they drink water? It says, Ki marim heim. We're now receiving education lesson from Hashem, number 1, for 3 credits. Okay? Now, when we complain, in the next pasuk, Vayilonu am al Moshe, against Moshe, saying, Manishteh. What are we going to drink? What is problematic about that complaint? Here we're going to receive lesson number 1 at the camping site called Marah. Yes? By the way, who is over us? How are we sheltering ourselves? We have the pillars of cloud in the day, the pillar of fire, Amud Ha'esh, at night. Hashem is with us all the time. 24/7? Yes or no? The question is, will we listen to what Hashem says and get closer to Him? Or are we going to complain? Now, we're told that we went 3 days in the desert. From Yam Suf to Marah. Apparently, I asked my friend, Shmuel, how is it walking in the desert 3 days without water? He says it's deadly. So apparently we went through the desert with water. Could it be no other place, maybe other than Yam Suf? We got water there. And now the 3 days are ending. Our bottles are empty. And now we're looking for new sources of water. Did we find? No. What does it say? Lo matzu. We didn't find water. Okay? We're looking for new sources that we didn't find. Yet we did not complain. Did you see that or not? We did not complain. Maybe we're thinking we're going to be reaching what? A very famous place of water? It could be. Let me ask you something. What's the name of the place that we arrived to? Did it receive the name already? It says Vayavo Marata. We already arrived to a place that has a name. It's called Marah. Okay? Could it be that it receives the name because of the event that's about to happen? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. It could be. Could it be that the water here was really good?
No.
Look what it says. Vayilonu ha'am al Moshe lemor manishte. But before that, they couldn't drink the water. Why? Kimarim haim. The word haim. Who is they? One meaning could be water, but another could be people. Hananel is not spoiled. He'll even drink water that's not so tasty. I know other people, never. They would never drink water unless it's like regular, clear mineral water from the Golan and so on and so forth. But could it be that they're complaining for no reason? And they are the people that are bitter. When a person's embittered, then his day is bitter. The food that he eats is not so tasty. The water that he drinks is not so tasty. Gentlemen, what could be happening here is we're quite young in our process of faith, of education from God. And instead of being grateful to Hashem, we're already complaining. We're already complaining. Now let me ask you something. What should the nation say to Moshe before asking, what are we going to drink? What should we say? Huh? What should we say? Is there water? Can we find some water? I mean, a great thing happened when we left Yam Suf. We took the water from the Yam Suf. Okay? Instead of complaining to Abba, what are we going to drink? Say first, is there water here? What can we drink? Instead of being negative, we could have been positive. We're going to continue this short B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow regarding this matter. What is Hashem instructing us here? Why is it saying later, Vayoreu Hashem and not Vayareu Hashem? We'll continue with this point, B'ezrat Hashem.